right, jumping into this week 13 recap. I know you guys didn't think I was gonna come through. I'm actually coming on here really late just because I just been just crazy hectic as overall, but wanted to definitely jump on and do this, especially considering we're going into the last week and it is super close with so many teams. It's an opportunity for folks to get hype if your team's in contention, which my team is absolutely not in contention. This has been the worst fantasy year I've ever had, ever. And it's going to be the worst year I ever had because I'm never having this again. This feeling, this is terrible. It's for like Greg down here at the bottom. But anyway, jumping into week 13 recap. Before I even jump into it, just want to shout out the teams that are currently in contention right now, just because it's going to come down to the last absolute week. You have people like Darion, Greg, and Lenny, like they're sitting up top, right? I mean, I think right now those three are playing for bye week purposes at this point, right? Like, so depending on what happens this week, any of them could kind of get into that shuffle, especially considering like they're so stacked up on points as well. I know right now Darren's leading the pack actually Lenny's leading the pack. So if Lenny were to win and get to a tie with any of those two people, those two teams, he would be on top. So it comes down to that. Then outside of that, it is all up for grabs for the last three spots. So between Brian, Steve, Nestor, Steven, Lloyd, they're all in contention for this last spot. And in some ways, you might even say Rodrigo might be in contention depending on how it works out, but he would need a lot of losses for him to get in there. But his point record is actually up there because he's actually scored more points than both Nestor, Steven, and Lloyd, right? So if it came down to records, Rodrigo would even be in there, right? Like, so think about that for a second. I'm talking about three spots, and I just talked to you about 6 teams. 6 teams. So it comes down to like literally this last week, which is super exciting. Even though my team has not been contentious like week 2, I'm still gonna keep that energy because it's kind of exciting to see like just the competition in this league, honestly. So with that being said, let me jump into last week's recap really quickly before jumping into like the preview for this week because this week's crazy. I will jump into my matchup first against Steve Jones. Steve Jones beats me 156.9 to 131.86. Steve goes up to 5th place. I fall. I stay where I've been at the whole time, which is in 12th place. Here's the reason why I'm going first because my team is so terrible. Looking at my team, not even looking at my team. I'm in 12th place. Not going to do this. Going over to Steve Jones' team. Had some really great games from Kirk Cousins, gave him 24.2. Connor gave him 19.1. Sony Michelle gave him 21.9. Chris Godwin gave him 30.2. Elijah Moore gave him 20.6. He had Derek Henderson on his bench that's currently out. And that's really it for the most part. And let me just say straight up and down, I've never done that before. I've been doing these recaps now for 3 years. I've never, ever skipped over a team. But I'm going to do it for the sake of time and the sake of patheticness. We're not even going to talk about my terrible team. Not going to do it. So, congratulations, Steve. Moving on to the next matchup. Yo, I may have to eat some dirt. So between now and the end of the year, Nessa and I have already started talking about it. We're going to do a podcast. We're going to do probably 2 of them. And I got to be honest with you. On one of the podcasts, one of the things I'm actually going to have to do is like eat dirt. So Nestor wins. He goes to 6 and 7. He's currently in 6th place. So if Nestor wins this weekend, Nestor is in the playoffs. He beat Lloyd to get up to 6 and 7. So he drops Lloyd to 6 and 7 to 8th place. These two actually know each other. So this is what makes this even more interesting. Because I think Lloyd didn't tell me this, but I know Lloyd was with me laughing at Nessa's pathetic team. Nessa's kind of on a winning streak, on the low. Looking at Lloyd's team, I mean, Mark Ingram gave him 3.6. Christian Kirk gave him 1.4. Kendrick Boone only gave him 0.3. Travis Kelce gave him 5.7. His kick only gave him 7. I mean, Lloyd's team just clearly didn't show up. I don't know why Lloyd has 2 defenses, but clearly he has a mythology that I don't know anything about. But he had Aaron Rodgers also on his bench and really has nothing else. Going over to Nessa's team, shout out to Nesta, man. I salute you, man. So Nesta had Justin Herbert give him 31.28. Jonathan Taylor gave him 24.3. Clyde Edwards-Helaire gave him 11.2. Jamar Chase only gave him a decent 10.1. But like he had Rashad Bateman give him 0, by the way. And his defense only gave him 3, but still was able to pull out the win for Nestor. And he did that with Swift currently out on IR and also Carter on IR. So shout out to Nestor, man. Again, if he makes it in, I will be eating a lot of crow. Looking over at B-Raw, Brian played against Rodrigo. Brian loses 117.2 to 135.22. Look at Rodrigo's team to stay in contention. Well, look at Brian's team. Um, really tough one. He had Josh Allen giving 13.7. He had Adrian Peterson only giving 7.6. Tariq Hill giving 4.2. Cole Beasley giving 2.1. Brian really had a bad, he played a lot of people in this Monday night game because between Cole Beasley, the kicker only gave him 3, and the Josh Allen only gave him 13.7. Really, he was really punished by that terrible Monday night game. He does have Darren Waller on his IR, and he also had Melvin Gordon currently out, but nothing else really on his bench. Looking over at Rodrigo's team, shout out to him for just staying in contention and staying relevant, and going into this last week with a chance. He had Tom Brady giving 36.62. He had Kenneth Gainwell gave him 19.7. The Rams defense gave him 14. Von Jefferson gave him 16.1. He had Aaron Jones and DJ Moore currently out. So, again, doing all the right things, just stay in contention and give himself a chance. Moving over, this was a chance for Greg to really solidify himself against Lenny. He takes the loss. Lenny wins 180.92 to Greg 145.34. Looking at Greg's team, James Robinson gave Greg 2.5 in fairness to Greg. However, outside of that, Greg really had a lot of ballers. Russell Wilson gave him 20.7.4. CeeDee Lamb gave him 19.2. He had Devontae Johnson give him 30.5. Mike Williams gave him 16. Miles Sanders gave him 17.2. He had Devontae Freeman give him 20.7 on his bench. He had Taysom Hill give him 24.6. He also had Jerry Jeudy give him 11.7. So Greg had some pieces on his bench. Moving over to Lenny, Kyler Murray's back. Gave him 34.82. Josh Jacobs gave him 24 points flat. Antonio Gibson gave him 22.1. Keenan Allen gave him 22.4. Cooper Kupp gave him 26.9. He had Hunter Renfrow give him 19.2. And he has Joe Burrow on his bench. He also has Dalvin Cook and also A.J. Brown on his IR. So if Lenny's able to get healthy at the right time, he's currently right now sitting in third place and knocked off Greg, who's been a heavyweight in this league, to give him his second loss of the season this late in the year. So Lenny could be a scary team, but Greg's team continues to be a really impressive team in this league as well. Then going up to the number 1 team, Darion doing just enough to keep staying at number 1, 144.72 to 183.18 against Derek. Derek, similar to myself, a veteran in the game, always a great team. However, clearly, he's not having as bad a year as I have. No one is. But looking at Derek's team, he started guarding Minshew. Shout outs to him, 22.778. Boston Scott gave him 0. Scary Terry gave him 5.2. Devontae Freeman gave him 13.5. Jared Cook only gave him 5.9. His defense gave him 1. His kick gave him 6. He did have Devontae Adams currently out. Nothing really else by way of his bench. Looking at Darion's team, not really impressive. He did have David Montgomery give him 28.1. He had Elijah Moore give him 17.4. DJ Metcalf only gave him 11, but his defense gave him 20. Solid. That's a solid 20. A bit of a game changer. And then Lamar Jackson gave him 19.6. He does have Deebo Samuels and also Jeff Wilson currently out. So shout outs to Darren for doing just enough to get the bye. And then Steven's team, man, staying in contention, man. Top 2, not 2, man. He beat actually UG 159.06 to 120.02. Looking at UG's team, team had Dak gave him 13. Saquon gave him 13. He had Devontae, Leonard Fournette gave him 22.2. He had Mike Evans give him 16.9. Waddle gave him 18.9. He had T. Higgins on his bench with 28 points. He had Mike Pittman on his bench with 17. He had Michael Gallup on his bench with 24.8. He had Dallas Goedert on his bench with 28.5. So, I don't know. Just a lot of points on your bench. That's all I'm going to say to you. That's all I'm going to say to you on that one. Then looking at Steven's team, he had Patrick Mahomes. I don't know. He's having a funny year. Only give him 12.56. Austin Eckler gave him 17.4. Alexander Madison gave him 22.4. Russell Gage gave him 22 points. Tyler Lockett gave him 19.8. Kittles gave him 39.2. James Crowder started, gave him 10.2. Shout out to you, Sleeves, on that one. He does have Chubb currently out, and also AJ Dillon currently out on bye. So it could have been more impressive. So that's the recap for last week. Looking at this week, which is going to be an interesting week. I play against Rodrigo. I'm 2-1. I'm a walking by week. But then you have Brian, who's in fourth place, plays against Lloyd, who's in eighth place at 6-7. And Lloyd needs this win. Brian needs this win to stay in contention as well. You have Davis versus Goliath in this one. Nessa plays against Greg. Greg's in second place at 11-2. Nessa is 6-7. This is for bragging rights for Nessa, but also get into the playoffs. Because if Nessa gets above 500, I have to eat some crow. Then you have Lenny at 10-3, who's in third place playing against Darion, who's 11-2 in first place. This could be like a championship preview in some ways. You have Steve, who's 7-6, plays against Yuji, who's 3-10. And then you have Lloyd, who's 4-2, plays against Steven, who is 6-7. So interesting week. Even though I'm not in contention, I'm super hyped and energized for you guys because, again, it's a competitive league. I'm just sorry that my team's too pathetic. I'm not partaking in it. But, hey, man, I'm going to be the biggest cheerleader on the sideline seeing how this all plays out. See you all next week. I put it in for you, I spin for you, whatever you with, I'm with it.